Dear participants, very good morning to all of you and a warm welcome to the morning session of the fifth and final day of our 5-day faculty development program, Thriving Together, Communication, Mental Wellness and Collaborative Excellence in Higher Education, organized by the School of Applied Science and Humanities, Haldia Institute of Technology in association with IQAC. Over the past 4 days, we have listened, questioned, and learned together. And today's session promises to carry that spirit forward with a theme that concerns every one of us, whatever our discipline, and that is communication. And it is approached from a refreshingly original direction. It is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished resource person for this session, Professor Anurag Chauhan. Professor Chauhan is a professor in the Department of English and Foreign Languages, School of Arts, Ghasidas, Vishwavidyalaya, Bilaspur, with nearly 3 decades of distinguished experience in teaching, research, academic leadership, and curriculum development. He also serves as the Dean School of Studies in Arts, Ghasidas Vishwavidyalaya, where he plays a pivotal role in promoting academic excellence and interdisciplinary learning. He holds an MA, MPhil, and PhD in English with his doctoral research focusing on the dynamics of opposites in the fiction of Gabriel Roy. His areas of academic interest include poetry, Shakespeare, post-colonial literature, and cinema studies. Before joining Guru Ghasidas Vishwavidyalaya in 1997, he taught at the Government Women's Polytechnic, Burhanpur, and L&T DAV Public School, Hirmi, where he gained valuable experience in language and communication pedagogy. Professor Chauhan was awarded the prestigious Fulbright Scholar in Residence Fellowship and taught at 2 institutions in the United States during 2011 and 2012. He has held several important academic and administrative responsibilities, membership of the NIRF Core Committee and the Committee for Endangered Languages Lab. An accomplished researcher and mentor, he has supervised around 70 MPhil dissertations, numerous MA dissertations, and doctoral research scholars. He has organized Gyan courses, an ICSSR national seminar, and several communication workshops, besides presenting at papers at national and international conferences and serving as a resource person in HRDC programs. His contribution continued to enrich English language and literary studies through teaching, research, and academic leadership. Dear participants, the title of today's lecture, The Textuality of Things, a Prerequisite for Communication, invites us to widen our very notion of what a text is. The world around us is dense with meaning long before anyone speaks a word, and to communicate well, we must first learn to read this larger text of things. And who better to guide us through it than a scholar whose range runs from Shakespeare to cinema studies? Without taking any more time that rightfully belongs to our speaker, I now invite Professor Anurag Chauhan to deliver his lecture. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anab, for introducing me. May I also request you to share my PPT from my end?
All right, sir. I'll share the
Uh,
PPT right away, sir.
Good morning. Look at the screen. Now, what do you see? You see a building, a cartoon character, a poem. You can call it slam poetry, a social media network. One cup of ice cream. In fact, one of the most expensive ice creams ever in the world. And I hope some of you get to have a taste of it someday. Uh, well, now these things seem disparate, yet they are all connected by a single powerful concept, that is textuality. Our journey today is to explore how language in its broadest sense is not just a tool for describing reality, but the very mechanism that constructs perception, our identity, and reality itself. This is not just an academic exercise, it is a skill. It is a critical skill for navigating the 21st century. Communication comes not just from words. And so our literacy should extend rather to embrace multiple means of communication today. At the end of this lecture, you will see the world not as a collection of objects, but as an infinite network of texts waiting to be read. Okay. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay. Now, um, on the left hand side, you see letters that are incomprehensible, right? And on the left, you see a very much comprehensible text with sentences, punctuation, capitalizations, and what you. The point here is that textuality comes not only from text, even writers, they experiment with text, and this is just an example. This is exactly it was in the novel The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. In order to make their communication more impactful, you can see how writers experiment with the text. Here, to show the disintegrated, abnormal condition of protagonist Haldia in that novel, The Bluest Eye, you can see how the text, which is incomprehensible, just a monogram of letters, it is in fact reflective of her disintegrated condition, which happens in the novel later. These two things they come at the very start of the novel, but it gives you a hint of what is to come later in the novel. Next slide, please. Um, yes. So textuality on a first reading is the quality of coherence or connectivity that characterizes text. On such a definition, this term is no more and no less vague than the first, since connectivity may be dependent upon the inherent qualities, properties of the textual artifact, the interpretive activities of a community of readers or viewers, or a combination of the two. It raises the further problem, however, of whether all texts are necessarily unified by textuality or whether some kinds of texts may not contain with them significant anti-textual properties. Now, here on this slide, I have mentioned a few points in a simple way. That textuality is how language and symbols convey meaning. And beyond text, you can include all forms of representation, not just writing or speech. These all today are a part of the communicative process. And the universal text today in the 21st century is everything from science to poetry, which can be interpreted as texts. So textuality is not a quality of texts alone, it is a quality of everything that is radiating to us meaning, that is a part of communication. Okay, even you see, one theory of communication is that it is a two-way process. But even today, even those non-human, non-living entities which communicate to us, which present some meaning, sign signifiers and signified that play through that play. When they present something to us, some meaning, it is not a one-way process because our perception of that sign, of that thing which is conveying some meaning, that perception also counts. So in a way, I feel it becomes a two-way process, even with non-living things. So everything is a text. That is the point of this lecture. So today we have digital texts, multimodal texts, hypertexts, interactive texts, augmented reality and virtual reality. We have transmedia storytelling. We have user-generated content. We have data-driven texts. We have machine-readable texts, etc. Next slide, please. Yes. Now, here you see two photographs. One on the left is of the Sydney Opera House. And on the left, as you can recognize well, is the Taj Mahal. Now, when we see these two things, if I ask which is relevant, can you something about these two buildings? And that person would say, yes, they are beautiful. Okay. Uh, or may say, I think the Taj Mahal is more beautiful than the Sydney Opera House. Okay. And try to define what are the differences. Why did you say that the Taj Mahal is more beautiful? Can you elaborate? Then it would he or she would say, I cannot say Taj Mahal is more white, it is taller, it is different. It is different. That is why it is more beautiful. But when we go into the meaning of things, then we go specialized vocabulary. This specialized vocabulary brings precision, clarity, and definiteness. Consider Sydney Opera House and the Taj. From terms, normal terms like beautiful, spectacular, radiant, you go to some other terms like symmetrical and asymmetrical. One student may say, oh, Taj Mahal is very much symmetrical, but the Sydney Opera House is not symmetrical. That is one difference. That contributes to their being beautiful or less beautiful. Okay. Then from that words nuance to more, technical jargon or terms like finite geometry or spherical from common sphere or geometrical proportionality or shell action, strain stresses, and masonry. That is architecture and engineering. I also don't know the meaning of these terms. Just to tell you how we go into specialized vocabulary, and that further improves the meaning. Okay, of this concept, process of clarity, further clarity. Okay, when a patient goes to the doctor, he simply describes as a patient, but the doctor has no technical terms for it. That is what happens when we go. Uh, so what animals have is a referential kind of thing, which is only senses. But we humans, because of its ability faculty, we can have more specialized vocabulary to generate more meanings and a better communication. That also is a part of the communicative process. As students, we must all remember this. Next slide, please. So, in the this process, the things that are required are observation, perception, perspective, and expression also. The fourth stage, communication, we communicate when we understand through language or art or action. These are all parts of the communicative process. Next slide, please. The thing is why textuality matters today, because in way of life, our perception, our understanding is reaching out into multiple reimagining. We have to decode nature in proper. Okay, we have to recognize manipulation. We have to distinguish between meaningful communication and propaganda, which happens all the time. You pick up a report, you open the newspaper today, and you have all the notification and news about CJP and all that. Just from the reports themselves, you can see the internet also. You have to distinguish between meaningful communication and propaganda, and then you have to engage critically. That is how you get empowered as a reader, as a perceptor, when empowerment interacts with the overwhelming textual world, and textuality is everywhere. Next slide, please. Now, the earlier notions of word, in them, there was a kind of hierarchy in which the written or the printed word was on the top of that hierarchy, whereas the word was um, uh, on the bottom. Okay, so greater reverence or respect was given to the word. Today, you go you for a train or bus journey. How many people do you see reading a book? Almost none. Okay, and if somebody is reading, people might look at him with a kind of respect generated out of antiquity, as if somebody is engaged in a kind of outdated but reverential tradition. Okay, so today the written and the printed word is not at the top of the hierarchy, and the oral word a word has gained visual word. Textuality in its oral and visual form is being respected more, at least by the common people. Okay, this change is coming over. So this is important to understand in terms of understanding the textuality of things. Next slide, please. Earlier, we used to talk about things and phenomena, used to understand and perceive things and phenomena. There was text, that means the written or the printed word, and oral word in terms of folk tales, songs, etc. But now we have literature plus non-literary texts and other narratives and discourses, all things and phenomena, which kind of are within the same sphere. The which was the hierarchy is broken, which the on the top, and everything is becoming kind of democratic today in terms of textuality. That doesn't mean that it is equal in terms of its perception, the respect to it, but there's been a difference. Yes, next slide, please. Now, when this conception, the read or criticism of the word was there till the end of the 19th century, there was a dominance of biographical and impressionistic critique, at least in terms of literature. Okay, and the critic, according to his own subjective likings and dislikings, would say to the text, "I like you" or "I don't like you." Here you can see cartoon man telling the text of the book that, "Shut up, I will tell you what you are. You won't tell me what you are." Medicine was already please. And now, when they later, when at the start of the new critics, etc., came, formalists, etc., they said no. The text should not be, or the word should not be interpreted according to the likings and dislikings or prejudices or biases of the critic, but the text in itself is communicating a meaning. So everything, every meaning is inside the text. There is nothing outside the text. Uh, the slide has. Yes. So this kind of people is claiming its autonomy. And the other slide, please, for a moment. Uh, well, okay, let this slide be there. Um, In the earlier slide, the text was yes. In this slide, the text is claiming, "Thanks, mommy, but I'll speak for myself." You don't have to interpret. You don't have to become the critic. The meaning is within myself, and I will tell you the meaning. So the new critics, etc., they stood for the autonomy of the text, and they said that the meaning is within the text. Next slide, please. Now, what are some other themes that came? New historical Marxism, cultural criticism, feminism, deconstruction, colonialism, post-colonialism, etc. Now, these theories, they said no. The meaning is not inside the text alone. It is related to so many things in the world, like economics, like gender differences, power structures, etc. So we have to, when we read a text, we need to keep in mind different contexts. Okay, here in this cartoon, these new historicists, Marxists, etc., they are saying to the word, they are saying to the text, they are saying to the book that don't worry, we have brought your freedom and all your meanings. Okay, so these fellows, these later critics, they went somewhat against the formalists and new critics. Next slide, please. Now, today we have so many different kinds of forms, hybrid forms, experiments with narrative techniques, visuals, metafictionality, etc. The first picture on the top left, it is from the Jungle Book, and this is a 3D version. When a child opens the page of the book, I have this book. When a child opens the page of the book, and the pop outs also come out. Okay, so the meaning, you see, the 3D things, they are also generating the meaning. This is just a small example. Down below is a page from a kind of epistolary novel, and in this novel, real postcards, stamps, etc., are also given. When a reader opens the page, then he will find a postcard or a letter attached in that letter, not simply printed, but very much there in its physical. Now, why is this done? To infuse the text with greater meaning, deeper meaning, or more impactful meaning, certainly. Okay, so so many experiments combining the textual and the non-textual physical ingredients, they also started coming from 20th century onwards. Next slide, please. We read different kinds of text all the time, not just editorial books, newspapers, and magazines, but also billboards, websites, posters, Facebook pages, and even radio programs, television. Now, here in this picture, you see very traditional labels which could have been found in the 19th century. And these labels have been given to these objects. The 20th century versions of these objects are mentioned. Okay. For example, instead of that black telephone, it is given Skype. Even Skype has become outdated. This cartoon has also become outdated, really. And instead of Skype, you have Google Meet and so many other kinds of things which have surpassed Skype. Okay, so you see how instead of a portrait or window, you have YouTube. Okay, where you can see visuals, videos, and so many. So what is happening because of all this is that the text and the word are facing an ontological crisis. Okay, a crisis in meaning, because from telephone, then to Skype, then to Google Meet, or so many other kinds of visual meanings of communication, all this is kind of dismantling the earlier meaning. So it is an ontological crisis, but at the same time, it is an opportunity. It is an opportunity. That is why people are embracing these changes. They are not shying away from these changes. Okay. Now, uh, in the past, most of us didn't think of reading in terms of what we do when we hear a story. listen to a radio program or watch a movie, an online video or a television program. But if you consider what it is that you do when you listen to or watch these texts, you might realize that you take in information, you interpret and react to it much as you do when you have read any traditional print text, any novel or poem. Now, allow yourself to think about literacy in new and various ways. That is how you have to broaden your ideas about 21st century textuality. Next slide, please. So, in every aspect of life, from home to work, the way we interact with the world is becoming more complex, more multifaceted. Um, Here you can see areas like uh, plastic arts, architecture, taste and cuisine, music, chatbots, hypertext, AR, VR, video games, all contribute to textuality. Um, Mona Lisa saying hello, all these artifacts claiming their own space. They say we also have text. We also have textuality. We are a part of the communication process. We also carry meanings and they these all are being recognized. For example, students of English literature, they too do not have a reservation or bias against traditional texts like novels, dramas, fiction, etc. They take into account meaning, they take into account scenarios, they take into account experiences. You know, many years back, when the question was given, in the nationalized literature award, although he is basically a singer, but because of his song so they were awarded for personality, originality, insight, imagination. So we attribute so many things. Okay. Well, yes. Next slide, please. Next. Yes. So what we read today, we read, of course, so many things. We read books, newspapers, magazines, but we also read billboards, websites, posters, Facebook pages, even radio programs, television shows, movies, online videos, what you have, Instagram messages, and so many things. Now, the textuality of Instagram is, of course, different from what you have on Facebook or WhatsApp. Each medium has defined its textual limits and textuality. So, and we are comfortable, we adapt to these different kinds of communication and textualities. Next slide, please. Personal experiences also shape our way of approaching and imbibing. This does not mean that every individual imbibes communication, textuality in the same way. That's what makes this human uniqueness. We are all different. That is the thing. Okay. We understand we have our likings and dislikings, and uh, 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 that also may not be personal. So, one thing can be, for example, one person's way of approaching the world or learning from the world, or his or her preferences for learning, in case of one person, can be textual, and for another one it can be hands-on. That is why one person is a doctor, another person becomes a teacher, or one person likes music and another person likes to read books. These references are very much well known. They do not have a hierarchy in the book. They are all equal. Yes, next slide, please. Now, when we talk about different literacies, textualities, then one, then oral literacies, visual literacies sometimes combine. Okay. Um, Oral literacies can relate to oral performances which present a rhetorical situation involving a speaker, a text, audience, whether it is debate, drama, slam, etc. And understanding of it coding, encoding, noise, are also involved. In interpretation, factors like age, gender, sexual orientation, religion, educational level, economic status also help the understanding. Here in this slide, this is a scene from Ghasidas, black movie. In this scene, you can see this scene is set inside a tank, as you well understand, and Devanand he lower earth, and on the upper berth, Wahida Rahman, the okay. Now, we they met for the first time. They were strangers. Now, Ghasidas says that this lady having parents who are sitting opposite to this boy, to this man, Devanand character. Okay. And this girl is on the upper berth, and this fellow sings a song in this situation. This song is अपनी तो हर आह एक तूफान है ऊपर वाला पर भी जा रहा है. Understanding of thing should not rely only to the words which I spoke. It also depends on the song, to what genre this song falls into, contrast and double meaning song. For example, Upperwala, the male character mean Upperwala, the god, or does he mean the girl? Double meaning in that song. It is not a vulgar song. When I say double meaning, it is it. When you listen to this song sung by Muhammad Rafi, it sings. It seems like a bhajan. And for many years, when I was a child or youngster, I always heard it on the radio, and I always thought it was a bhajan. But when I saw the song on YouTube or somewhere for the first time, then after years and years, I realized it is not a bhajan. A radio like a now, in the movie, in that scene, in that song, the parents of the girl are also wondering that whether he is singing a bhajan or is he reciting a poem. The mother of the girl, she elbows the boy and signals to him, see, look at this boy, what is he singing? But the father pacifies her and says, no, no, don't worry. He does not speak, just from his gestures. Oral and visual literacies with their synergy can also convey so many kinds of different kinds of things. Next slide, please. Now, here, in terms of visual literacies, you also see we should be aware of the potential of perception and image, and how the image must be depicted. The visual text only presents things in an overt and explicit form that the verbal text do or the visual text do, and that becomes a problem. We need to understand the purpose, perspective, and context. Uh, think for a moment about the drama Hamlet by William Shakespeare. Now, these two scenes are from the drama. There have been so many movie adaptations of that drama. Okay, we adapt to black and white. in which Hamlet is a prince, not a king. Nobody thinks that he is a princess. Everybody thinks that it is a prince. Okay, because she presents herself as a male. In one Hamlet, the soliloquies come as a voiceover, whereas in this one, for example, Kenneth Branagh holding a bare bodkin before the mirror, when you look at that, you can think of like kings and lords and all that. So Branagh is in front of a mirror and did all to say everything he said to have been doing. The second image is also from Shakespeare's Hamlet, but this Hamlet in the modern Hollywood the 20th century or 21st century Hamlet, whereas the original Hamlet was set in medieval times, but this is set in the 21st century, and not Denmark but New York, America. And here Hamlet is speaking very deeply to be cursing himself, berating himself for not taking care of his father. And you can see in this story, in this section, which is labeled all around action, action on his left, on his right, left and right. And that is what is troubling Hamlet in that story. There are so many scenes which are inspiring me to action, which are inspiring me to avenge the death and murder of my father. Yet I am inactive. I am passive. Why am I not avenging the death of this is reflected here. So this is also like, you can see how the textual matter that he has written by Shakespeare has been converted into so many beautiful and wonderful forms using the visual and visual medium in cinema here, for example. Next slide, please. Now, this again, I take this one from Alfred Hitchcock's famous movie Rear Window. Okay, here uh, you can see um, um, cinema is a good example. Laura Mulvey has talked about visual pleasure and narrative cinema, which with reference to perspective and gaze. Here, the scene is that the hero has got his leg fractured due to an accident. So, to pass away time, he observes people from his window using binoculars, people living in apartments. Now, in this scene, the hero and his girlfriend, they are both looking at the same thing, but their perspectives, their gazes are different. Their interpretations are different. Now, what they are looking at is another woman in the apartment opposite, and she is entertaining some male guests, and she is also flirting with those guests, male friends. Now, this hero observing that woman says, oh, she's flirting and something like that, and she's having fun. Okay. And this woman who is observing the other woman, she says, oh, poor woman, she's juggling lovers. So the male does not have that pity which the female has. So the male and female gazes can be different. Their interpretations can be different. You can see very well in this slide, this scene from Hitchcock's Rear Window. Next slide, please. This is another example. Digital or other kinds of literacies. Here you can see a mugshot of O.J. Simpson. I think he was a basketball player who was convicted of a crime, and this photograph is at the time of his arrest. Now you can see two different magazines presenting the same photograph with slight differences. Okay, this mugshot in in the Time magazine, Time has highlighted the contrast and darkened the skin tone of O.J. Simpson, reputedly for aesthetic reason, as they said. Okay, but a post-colonial critic may point out things like racism, etc., in different kinds of presentations of the same. Newsweek has kind of diluted his skin tones, made him a little browner or fairer, if you want to say that. Okay, now these two things also uh, can be going into forming the public perception of that crime or their attitudes towards this man, especially in a white dominated America. Okay, so what I mean to say is that these mediums, they present not just shades but also ideologies. There is also a play of power and ideologies also behind the things that we see, that we witness in digital media, in visual mediums, and other kinds of media. Next slide, please. The power is back and I can switch on my laptop also, but I guess I should not interrupt the flow and keep on going. Here you can see graffiti artists, how they use graffiti. Okay, graffiti, you go in trains and you see so many bad, vulgar things or funny things written in toilets. That is also graffiti. But this is a more advanced aesthetic use of graffiti, in which artists, they use streets and walls at public places to that is voice their concerns or say something, or to just to represent their art. Here this graffiti carries some message also some ideological stance also. Okay, now you can, the first image, in that you can see women, burqa clad women, showing off their legs. Okay, exposing their legs in defiance. What is this defiance? I don't know the artist, which whether he is referring to any country, any particular country where women may be suppressed or under restrictions, like Afghanistan or wherever. Maybe he's talking about that, and he's talking. These women want their freedom, and this gesture of defiance. Okay, in this photograph, it gives that. Now, equally interesting in that graffiti photograph is that little boy who is observing these women with curiosity and wonder. We cannot see the expressions on his face, obviously, but we can wonder what he is thinking. He has never seen women that way. And this picture must be opening some channels of his mind. The other picture also, you see here, a little girl is patting the soldier, just as soldiers pat people searching for weapons and all. But it can be demeaning, it can be insulting, especially for females, if a male pats them for things like that. And equally interesting is the fact that a real girl is taking a selfie with this photo, which she finds to be interesting. Why does she find it to be interesting? Of course, it should be interesting. It is communicating a message. This graffiti picture, that the structures of power, they also need to be empathetic in this world. So, next slide, please. Now, digital literacies comprise another important aspect of textuality. They are redefining what it means to compose in the 21st century. They involve our ability to read and compose in a culture that has seamlessly integrated technology into the ways we communicate. Now, for example, in this picture, the first photograph on the left, It is from Second Life, which is an online multimedia platform that allows people to create an avatar for themselves and then interact with other users and user created content within a multi-layer online virtual world. Okay. Imagine writing a research paper on the potential of the game and the creativity of the participant. The movie Jumanji Part 2, that also is just a small example of how in that movie the different people, real life people, they got some avatars, and even when they came back at the end of the movie into the real world, those avatars change their personalities somewhat. These are interesting point of the second image is from Cyberpunk 2077, where you find similarly like the Second Life a lot of flexibility and role play in which people like us we can participate, take on avatars, we can respond to different situations, and our response will result in different kinds of consequences. And isn't this how it happens in the real world? We take a decision and we leave a road not taken, we take a road, we leave another road, and that road takes us to different situations, circumstances, it changes our life. That is how it happens in these games also. These games are not just of a fantasy scientific world, but they are rooted in reality in terms of our perception, our sensibilities, etc. Next slide, please. So, with the dismantling of conventional canons, literary texts have come down the pedestal which they were earlier placed on. And ingredients of popular culture have found a place and weightage as much as literature and other arts. Okay. Now, here, whether it is a celebrity culture, Kim Kardashian on the cover of that magazine in bikini, or video games or creation of language, pop culture, popular culture challenges the mainstream literature and other discourses. It also gives opportunity to mainstream forms to adapt and respond. A student or researcher must be aware of this and also of the power of advertisement, hegemony, and acculturation that go with it. You can see in this slide so many versions of Barbie and Kim. And you can also see what didn't used to be there earlier, a Afro-American Barbie. Okay, why was this Afro-American or black Barbie introduced? I think one reason was to be politically correct. Rather than for marketing reasons, it was for political correctness. One critic, Y.J. McDonough, has written a nice article tracing the history of the Barbie doll and the racial and political aspects involved in that. Okay. The other photos are from magazines and popular media. So popular culture is very popular nowadays. That has diluted and dismantled the conventional literature, which was upper in the hierarchy earlier. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of academic literacies, one has to, sorry, just a minute. Yes, in terms of academic literacies, one has to realize that academic writing is its own kind of literacy, and I'm getting some interruptions. And each academic field has its own way of thinking, its own genres, and its own conventions. One has to become a part of one or more disciplinary discourse communities nowadays. Uh, while these, broad divisions in terms of literary studies must be respected, good research demands that the boundaries be crossed so that we discover new things. For example, this is a book cover about intersections, collaborations, and novelty that go into literary studies. This book talks about taste, how taste has been presented even in earlier times in earlier poetry such as of Wordsworth and other poets. They were not writing about any pizza, they were not writing about any food things, but the indirect references to direct and indirect references to food, not detailed writing about food, but such references that have come into their writings. They tell how the culture of taste and cuisine has developed in literature throughout ages. This book talks a little about that. Okay, so to understand the meaning of things, we have to cross boundaries. We have to go into multidisciplinary understanding of things nowadays. Yes. Next slide, please. Let me just close the window. Next slide, please. Yes. Now, in an excellent book, the title of the book is Research Methods for English Studies. One chapter is on textual analysis. Okay. Um, Textual analysis as a research method. In this chapter, surprisingly, the writer Catherine Belze, when talking about textual analysis, she does not take any novel or drama or poem for textual study. Rather, she takes up a painting. And this is the painting in front of you. The title of the painting is Tarquin and Lucretia. Now, this painting has got a historical context during medieval Rome. This man from a royal family, he raped this married woman, Lucretia. Okay, this is the moment when he is attacking her. Okay, now Catherine Belze uses theories of race, class, as well as historical context and the dynamics of body angles and colors to analyze the painting and the story behind it. So you have to understand the Roman history, you have to understand the tradition of nude paintings, you have to understand even colonialism. This painting can be understood from the point of view of colonialism also, for example. How? Because apart from these two main figures, the man and woman, there is a third figure at the back of the man in the shadows. There is a third figure. Who is he? Why is he there? To understand, you have to read about the context, the history of slavery also. That man is a slave. How did he reach there? The man has brought him there. And he is threatening the woman not only with the knife, but also with that slave. That if you do not surrender, I will kill this slave and put his dead body in your bed. Then what sort of infamy will come upon your husband and your family? Think of it. Listening to all this, the woman finally surrenders. Okay, so anyway, now this painting can be studied by a student in different ways, by a researcher in different ways. What if the angle of the painting was from behind the right hand shoulder of the man? What if the angle was from the perspective of the slave? Okay, so many things, so many kinds of researches can be done. A student of painting, for example, normally we would study this painting. If it is 4 feet by 5 feet painting, we would study this painting from a distance of 2 or 3 meters. But a student of painting, if he or she is doing a research on the kind of brushes, brush strokes, colors, and shades in medieval times, then he may want to study this painting not from a distance of 3 meters, but from a distance of 2 or 3 centimeters using a microscope or whatever. Okay, so when we talk about literacies, these techniques and all tools, methods, and methodologies of research also we should be very much familiar with as students and scholars. Some of you might go into research or writing articles, etc. We should be aware that there are so many things to be explored. Next slide, please. Now, apart from the other things, civic literacies are also important, which means the ability to use our awareness and literacy as power in public, political, and community based situations. So many people, rightly or wrongly, are responding to the present agitation that is going on in Delhi. That is an example of civic literacy. Now, this kind of literacy can lead to collaborative nature of making knowledge also. So this is a literacy for awareness and response. Now, this slide presents is by a group called Gorilla Girls. Gorilla Girls. They are a feminist art group who use guerrilla advertising to make political statements about issues of gender and racial discrimination. This slide, for example, the point they are making in through this caption: do women have to be naked to get into the Metropolitan Museum? What is the point they are making? That in terms of human paintings that are there in most museums, the paintings of women are mostly there because they are nudes. And they say less than 4% of the artists in the modern art sections are women, but 76% of the nudes are female. Why? 76% of nude paintings are of paintings of women. This is discrimination. This is a patriarchal mode of exercise of power into aesthetic realm. This is what these guerrilla girls are protesting about. This is an instance of civic literacy. Next slide, please. And with this, I'll be ending my lecture. Today, the algorithmic text, the rise of generative AI, and models like ChatGPT, Gemini, Perplexity, and so many others, and the challenge to our understanding of textuality is further confusing us. Text that was understood as the product of human consciousness and intention is now taking a beating. Now we have a new author, which is a kind of a statistical model that produces text on demand based on patterns and probabilities. This challenges the concept of authorship. Is the author the programmer, the data set, or the model itself? For AI, all text is data. Okay, AI cannot distinguish. For it, text is data. The model does not understand the text in a human or semantic sense. It treats it as a sequence and tokens of, symbols and all. So this is a fundamental shift. Here is the difference between human creator and AI. So it also brings the fact that text is reduced to a unit of computation. It brings a crisis of authenticity. Does the text represent a genuine human perspective or a sophisticated statistical hallucination produced by the AI? We must learn to read the algorithmic signature. We must move beyond questioning the author's bias to questioning the model's training data and intent. It also brings into question the fact that suppose the text produced by AI is better than that produced by Mr. X or Mr. Y or Mr. Z, then shouldn't we read the text produced by AI? So these are ethical questions also. There are ethical choices also that go into our literacies, our understanding of textuality, etc. So in short, I have tried to tell you about the different kinds of literacies, different kinds of textualities that we encounter today, and the way we should expand our understandings of these textualities. So that will be the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Sir, so thank you very much, Professor Chauhan, for that truly enriching lecture. You have given us a new pair of eyes this morning, and I'm certain we will now find it difficult to look at even the most ordinary object without asking what it is saying to us. So, talk as rich as this naturally leaves us with questions. And I will now ask the participants if they have any question, unmute them and they can ask. I'll ask a few. Okay, is there anyone asking a question?
Sir, you go first, then I have one question after you.
Okay, sir. Sir, I have a few questions that I have noted down during the session. I'll ask maybe one or two questions. Sir, the first question is that is there a meaningful distinction between everything can be read as a text and saying that everything is a text? And what is the theoretical consequences that follow this distinction?
Well, they, that would be saying almost the same thing. But yes, if someone wants to make a distinction, then one can say that technically everything is not a text. Okay,
Yes,
but yes. So then we are talking about textuality. Then, for want of a better word, because
yes, sir.
everything is communicating to us just like a text, so that's why we use the word text, or like text, or is conveying a textuality. That is for want of a better word, and for our convenience, I think we can take them to be both the perspectives are similar or differing only in the fact that technically those things are not text, they are different other mediums, visual, oral, whatever.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I have my second, this is my second question. If the same object can be interpreted differently across cultures and historical periods, where does the textuality reside? In the object, the cultural code, or the act of reading?
I think it resides in all these things. If you remember, a few days ago there was a controversy. I don't remember in which country, and it related to was it McDonald's or something, some big concern, and uh, they presented something, of course, not with the intention to offend anybody, but with some advertisement about their product. But the words they used or the image they used was considered derogatory to that culture in some historical context relating to the Second World War or something. And so the people and the government of that country, they kind of banned them, or were going to ban them, and after that that advertisement was removed. So yes, the meaning, I mean, as I said in my presentation, the formalists used to say that the text alone is sufficient. You have to look at the text and
Right.
nothing outside. But that is not considered true any longer. You have to understand the context, culture, and other perspectives also, people's perception also. But the degree of those, the impact of those things, or understanding of those things can differ. Okay, for example, a scientist working on his theories, in his case, the public perception of his theories or understanding or cultural importance may not matter that much.
All right. Thank you, sir. Uh, does anybody have any question for the questions?
I have a question, sir.
Yeah, please
You
go
had
ahead, madam.
mentioned in your session that there's a concept of new author, that texts are produced based on patterns and probabilities. So my question here is this pattern rather new, or is it continuing from a longer period of time where texts were produced based on social context, political, and also based on urbanization? Is it a new concept?
Well, the question you asked, I am not able to place to which particular section it was, but I understand your question very well. And if you are talking about the new author, I'm very much reminded of that famous essay by T.S. Eliot, Tradition and the Individual Talent, in which he says that no new work is really individual. It is all rooted in tradition. Okay, and what we call individual is just a new working up of the old things in a different way. Okay, in a more refined way, in a novel way, whatever. But even the newest work, in it you can trace with proper research the traces of old things, traditions, old writers, old creators. So that is there. That is very much there. Now you take Nolan's movie Odyssey, the Odyssey. Um, of course, there is a direct relationship to Homer's Odyssey, but even if that text was not there, the cultural reminiscences, the cultural echoes of the Odyssey, even if the Odyssey is a big, in this movie, Nolan's movie becomes a black or Afro-American character, even then those echoes of that culture would remain.
Right, sir. Thank you.
So, do we have any more questions? I see
Sir,
Sujata J.
yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Good
Please.
morning, sir. I'm Sujata from Bhojreddy Engineering College for Women. So you have, explained all the textuality of things. Like, for example, visual literacies, how, no, like the post-structuralism, all the theories work. But how can we relate it to or incorporate in terms of teaching or the students' communication? Anything, how can, like,
That,
because we are all working on, like, right now as from the teacher's perspective, so for the benefit of the students, how can we, like, make it relatable, like?
now, at one level, of course, there will be a distinction that a student teaching a student, sorry, a teacher teaching students of engineering would teach communication, aspects of tactical English, soft skills in a different way. Okay, but
Yeah.
that does not mean that this awareness of different kinds of oral, visual literacies, textuality of things shouldn't be there. He can very well use it. For the teacher of literature, for example, can exploit an understanding of these literacies, these textualities in a different way in terms of his or her research. For example, okay, for example, here at our department, there are students working on food autobiographies and cuisines, students of literature, but working on their PhD, and they take into account autobiographical memoirs of chefs and grandmothers and novels incorporating cooking or vegetarianism or non-vegetarianism and such things. So a student, sorry, a teacher of literature, for example, can exploit the use of these different textualities or literacies in a different way, in a broader way. But this understanding can help the awareness of these things, of how all the phenomena, all the things in this world have got their own uniqueness, thinginess, and yet are communicating with us, are radiating to us different kinds of meanings. Okay, and we exist in a dynamic because of culture, power relationships, and perceptions and ideologies that emerge. We exist as readers and perceivers in a dynamic with all these things.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, do we have any more questions?
Hi, Arnab. I do have one question.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, Anurag sir, for giving us great insights. I do have a question in context to second life that people live on social media, right? And this is something that we prominently see these days. How do we help students to balance that second life with the real life? Because there are times when they actually get lost in their second life, but the reality check is completely different, right? How do we balance these kind of, nuances one faces when, there are times when it really gets out of hand, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's that's somewhat of a problem which I also face at home, and well, there can be no golden mean in that, but I understand you may be talking about students and youngsters these days. Yes, you are certainly, and well, that is more. Uh,
Can I ask
when they
something?
understand that we live in a body, we have a physical body, and the software and hardware, both of this physical body is related to, is meant to be related to the real things in this world. We are not, and our body is, and even our mind is not just a product of 20 or 30 years. It is a product of millions of years. It was meant to run, climb trees, taste the fruits and flowers in the forest, and use the body in that way. So that is an important part of our life. But the students today who do not have proper infrastructure or a sports field, you cannot expect them to, that is, spend their time outside. So then they come and they open Facebook or whatever they do, and that is not the right thing. So we must be able to provide them alternatives. Now that is one part, physical activity. But then the other part is that books and reading, they are becoming out of date. I don't remember the last time I wrote a postcard or antardeshi patra to somebody. That was more than 1 decade ago. Okay. And the students today certainly don't know about these things. They would laugh if somebody was writing a postcard and all. So then we have to exercise our mind also, but I cannot point out a ready reckoner or direct, solutions to that. That requires a longer debate among teachers, parents, psychologists, and everybody, so that we can find concrete ways, some broad directions. That of course I can give, or even you can give, but we also need to develop concrete ways in which governance, administration, parents, schools, colleges, all should deliberate and come across some solutions, because this is a real problem. This is a very great issue, and this is a very real problem which we encounter and which we must find a solution to. A country like Cape Verde, with a population of 5 lakhs alone, could reach the quarter final of World Cup, and our country with what, how many, more than 100 crore people could not. So something is missing about our sports culture, our physical culture, our and that is one part. And regarding our brain culture also, if there are accusations that Indian researchers are not that much in proportion in terms of, patents or quality publication, then that is something to be thought of, and it should be given serious thought to. And all that comes around the question which you raised. Okay, because these youngsters, they are going to make up a future India in all these dimensions. So I'm sorry I could not provide you a concrete, mantra or solution, but yes, that is
Adding
a
to what
serious
you
one.
said, but this is adding to what you said. This is absolutely true, and but it's just not related to students anymore. I think as adults also, and in corporate world also, I see the same thing happening. But if I have to say something, when you said about parks and having sports, I remember when we were young, we didn't even have the parks, right? We were still out 3 hours playing, and our parents used to grab us to come home, right?
Yes,
But
yes,
getting
yes,
these kids out of the social life, it's like uh, having a friend sitting next to them and still they are on a social life. I don't know what social anymore means, when it
yes,
comes to context like that. Feels like so lost that you guys are sitting together as friends, but you're still talking to the third person, and you're not talking to the first person who's actually available. And they have a complete depicting image when you get onto a social life, and as even for teachers that I've seen, right? So in nutshell, this is when things actually that glass window really breaks. That's where the real challenge is for the students, right? When they actually go through once the glass is broken, there is no fixture. There is either therapy that comes along, and they actually, I see what happens is usually withdrawals. So if that is something I would really would like to have insights on. But yes, like you said, this is a real problem and we're still struggling to find solutions to it. But yeah, anyhow, this is what it is.
Yes, and thank you for your
Thanks.
observations and question.
Thank
Yes.
you, sir. Thank you.
So, do we have any more questions? Dear participants?
Yeah, hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Jyoti. This is in continuation with the discussion just which we had, and what Meher has very rightfully like mentioned that there's no permanent fixture to that, but uh, going back to our childhood days, we did have space where we could run about, play, do some physical exercise or whatever it is. However, I feel that with the advent of AI, especially in writing text, which we use for, you know, writing, or, our life has become more or less very easy. It has become easier for all of us. But at the same time, somewhere I feel it has also brought in a sense of monotony, a sense of boredom in our life, because uh, if we were to write something, we would use our mind, we will actually think, work, and then we'll produce something. But then nowadays, with the help of AI, like even conceptualization is done through AI. So where do we have the space? We have chosen actually. If we choose not to use AI for that purpose, for conceptualizing also, then we can, to an extent, we can work. But then most of the time, I don't know, there is paucity of time or what, but we do go for conceptualization. Then we go for the styling of our writing. So that way, somewhere we are blocking our own growth that way. This is what I have observed, sir. This is what I felt. This is what exactly I
And
wanted
yes,
to share with all of you. What do you have to say?
yes, you are very correct, and I have thought about this. And what is that term? Um, I forget that word. But anyway, when we talk about, for example, art objects. Now there is one handicraft made by hand by somebody, a statue or something, and a similar one, perhaps more beautiful looking, made by a machine. But we give more value to the one made by hand. We even ask the shopkeeper, ये हाथ से बनी हुई है ना, handmade है कि नहीं है, is it handmade or not? But in terms of even though the machine made is more beautiful, somewhat more beautiful, but
Machine made is
when
so
it
perfect,
comes,
sir. Machine made is perfect, completely. Otherwise,
yeah,
everything is so perfectly done.
yes, but the same principle, if the machine made poem is better aesthetically or otherwise than the one which a student has created, we come to the question, then why shouldn't we enjoy the one made by the machine? Now, this may seem like a cruel question, but it is nevertheless there. But then, at the base of this question is the argument that if we simply allow AI to rule our lives, then the beauty of things, the beauty of being human, and human creativity, that all will be gone. We should be able to appreciate human effort, and more than that, if we allow this today, then our future will be endangered. So this is part of the answer to these questions, why AI should not rule our lives or should not be allowed to rule our lives. But then, of course, there can be other perspectives about this also.
Very true, sir. Very true. Thank you.
So do we have any other question from the participants? All right, I think that is all from the participants. So with this, the morning session of the 5th day of our faculty development program comes to a close. I extend my sincere thanks to Professor Chauhan for a session that was as insightful as it was engaging, one that has given us a great deal to reflect upon. My gratitude also to the organizing committee and the technical team whose quiet efforts keep the program running smoothly, and to all the participants for your attentive presence and thoughtful questions. We now break for lunch and shall reconvene at 3:45 p.m. for the post-lunch session. I thank everyone, and thank you. Particularly, I thank Professor Chauhan for giving us his valuable time and enriching us with his insights. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, the participants, everyone. Signing out.